going to get us started as
Okay.
folks are joining Long Island City. Someone says, yes, that's me. And with Long Island City, not only am I from there, but my parents are from there. And I grew up in the house that was my grandfather's butcher shop. My grandfather's butcher shop was on the bottom and our apartment was on the top. So like
Yeah.
old school New York, which is fun.
Very cool.
Thanks to folks for joining. It's been a minute since we did a live stream. I hope everyone had a good summer, which feels weird to say, like as good of a summer as one can have in these days and these times. But I'm glad to be having this conversation. And Nancy and I were just talking about how we are going to try to end with some positive stuff, which I think we could all use. But just to get started, do you want to introduce yourself, say a couple of words about who you are, about the Gender Equity Policy Institute?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Well, thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Thank God for what you do
Thank
because,
you.
each month this news is disappearing more and more. We can talk about it. I have a little bit of
Yes.
intel about that from
Mm,
some work we've tried to do in getting our work out to the press. But I'm Nancy Cohen. I am a historian and author and founder of the Gender Equity Policy Institute. And what we do at GEPI is we do database applied research and work with policymakers and advocates to advance and accelerate women's equality and gender equity through innovative policy. We work on all issues. We put a
mm,
gender lens on an issue. So, right, what's the gender equality perspective on the housing affordability crisis, on the climate crisis? And of course, we are very concerned and attentive to reproductive
mm,
rights and freedom. And so, kind of to get us started, after Dobbs, we were relatively new. We started
mm,
in 2021, and we weren't doing reproductive health and rights and
yeah.
freedom yet. And then Dobbs happened, and we're like, okay, we have to step up. And our, brilliant policy director who has background in international work said, hey, well, why don't we take the UN Sustainable Development Goals on health, women's health and child health and gender equality and do an analysis of how the
Mm,
United States is stacking up. And so we first started doing this, I guess it was 2022 because it was Dobbs. And then so we came out with a report early 2023 on the
yeah.
first, on the, what would have been the 50th anniversary of Roe. And what we wanted to do is this was a clear case of a before and after.
Yeah.
Those of us, Jessica, you, a lot of people listening, I'm sure, and the work I've done in the past, there were a lot of us who were called alarmists, and when we said this is coming, and so we knew that there's this great, ecosystem and community of people really trying to improve women's health, equity, access, affordability. And we're like, our role can be let's look at the data on this.
Yeah.
Because we're going to need the stories, we're going to need the history, but we also anticipated that teen births would get worse, that maternal mortality would get worse. So we saw already before Dobbs was overturned, because we were looking at previous data,
Mhm.
saw that maternal mortality and teen births, pretty much every metric was worse in the banned states. And
Yeah.
in May of this year, we came out with our kind of update on looking at, okay, now that we had our baseline, what's happened?
Right.
Where are there increases and decreases?
Mm,
And that is, so that's kind of where we enter in
yeah.
this space.
It's a lot. That's a lot to to be to be doing and to be dealing with. I know we've really been so grateful for your research and for your data,
Thank you.
especially around um, maternal mortality. And I think that like you all have really provided some of the most shocking numbers around this, around what was the latest one, that it was mothers living in states that have banned abortion are almost twice as likely to die from pregnancy related causes as opposed to as compared
Yeah.
to moms in states with where abortion is protected, which is a nightmare and shocking. Do you feel like when that came out, was the reaction like what hoped is a strange word, but like did it
Yeah.
get the coverage and the attention that you hoped it would?
Yes. Yes, in some ways. I will say,
Mhm.
two of the other one of the other really, really, horrible, not shocking data points
Mm,
from the report is what happened in Texas. And so we had the
yeah.
data from Texas earlier on, and we had released that last year, kind of in the summer of 2024 before the election.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
key data points there, are that maternal mortality increased in Texas from the time from and we had to use 2019 as a baseline there because
Sure.
they were able to ban so early. So between 2019 and 2023, it rose
Yeah.
56%. And among white women, it rose
Right.
95%. And so we did a collaboration with NBC News, and
Mm,
they focused on one of the Zawarski
yeah.
plaintiffs, told her story. So after that came out last summer, it really got a lot of traction and it was really moving, during the pre-election period. Um, Fast forward to May when we did this year, and we also
Yeah.
I just want to say for everybody because one of the places we are getting coverage is in the anti-abortion right, and not
Really.
surprising, not surprisingly, they're just lying about
Right.
us. So,
Yeah.
I will say, we are very maternal mortality data is very complex,
Yeah.
and we do, pretty high level statistical testing. So anything we report
Yeah.
is significant, and so there's a lot that we can't report because the numbers are too small and the margin of errors, right?
Right.
So there are signs from other states that we don't report on that
Interesting.
things
Right.
might also be bad. We were also only dealing with the first year post-ban when we came out with
Mm,
this report. So anyway, just to assure everybody here, if you want to bring up our data and someone pushes back. We're very careful, very conservative in what we report,
right.
statistically tested, kind of vetted through various avenues. So I will say this year, so this gets back to the press story
Mm,
when we were pitching it, we got some good coverage,
mhm.
plenty of it, but we had reporters at very important outlets
Yeah.
interested. One of them said to us, I'd really love to cover this. Let me take it to my editor. They're saying nobody cares about this anymore. Like the story is done.
Yep.
And and to me, it's kind of one of the reasons in the work that we do in Gepi in general, it's kind of, gender, if it's not called out, these issues, if they're not called out, are invisible because they're considered secondary. They're not
Yeah.
important, right? And so we've been dealing with this for decades. It's like, oh, don't talk about abortion, don't talk about women's rights. Let's talk about the working class and read
Mhm.
white working class men when that's
Mhm.
said.
Mhm.
So I think it's right. It's really important to right. Hey, shout out to AED. It's critical to have an outlet like this because that was practically 6 months ago. No, five
Yeah.
months ago. I'm losing. Time every day is 10 years.
Same.
So
That's really, I mean, it's not surprising to hear that, but, like, we have seen, just in following the coverage and, like, we're doing news searches every day, I've seen it drop off a cliff. Like certainly like the coverage dropped off a cliff after November. But even in the last month or so, right? And obviously there's a lot going on in politics and all of it matters. But it's been a little surprising to me, like just how much it's dropped off. Even and I, want to make sure we talk about this at some point. The story that we reported last week about the Trump administration saying outright that certain kinds of contraception are abortions, like saying that in an official statement. And it turns out, I just wrote about this in the newsletter last night. It turns out that they've been saying this from the beginning when they moved to
Mhm.
destroy this $10 million in contraception that was meant to be dispensed to women abroad. They said, no, we're not doing it because it's abortifacient contraceptives, abortifacient birth control, which is not a real thing,
Yeah.
right? But literally, I'm looking and I'm seeing CNN, I'm seeing the Times, everyone covering this, like quoting that and saying nothing else, like quoting abortifacient birth control and saying nothing else. There's no exploration of that. There's no explanation. Um, and so, yeah, it's been really disappointing to see. Someone asks, "Have you worked with ProPublica?" And I think, and you have, right?
Yeah, we've been in conversation with them. I mean, they're doing amazing work. They're taking it like
Mhm.
they're doing a different angle on this. Their angle is um, they're really going into state health records where they can get them,
Yeah.
which is amazing. So we've talked to them a lot about data. Sometimes they cover us. We speak on background with them a lot. The thing about our work, which I wish it were different, but the CDC. Well, one, we have no idea if the CDC is going to
Mm,
continue to collect maternal mortality data or whether banned states are going to submit their data. And I think
right.
the answer is
Right.
yeah, probably not. Um,
At
so
all.
yes, we'll see. We'll see. It's do they submit it? Is it accurate? So the data, although it flows in monthly, they're all provisional counts. So we only get this data once a year. So
Okay.
yeah. So we kind of right our relationship with ProPublica is around the time when we're
Sure.
starting to crunch the data.
But what
Yeah.
do you do when they, because we've seen that anti-abortion states are trying to bury maternal mortality data, right? Like maybe it's not that they're not reporting it, or that they're disbanding maternal mortality committees, or like we've seen in Texas, they're stacking those committees with anti-abortion activists. What does a group like yours do when that's the case, and you can't necessarily depend on state data um, to paint an accurate picture of what's actually going on?
The answer to that is I don't know what we're going to
Yeah.
do. I think it's probably going to be I think it's going to have to be a collective effort.
Hmm.
Um, some, activists like finding a way for people to report. I don't know. I mean, I've been thinking about this. And I mean, one of
Yeah.
the other things we do, and this was in our last report, we did a comparison of Texas and California and banned and
Yeah.
supported states. So I in banned states overall,
Hmm.
the maternal mortality is twice as high.
Hmm.
Um, but comparing Texas and California, Texas is 2.6 times. A mother in
Yeah.
Texas is 2.6 times as likely to die as a mother in California. And for Latinos, it's 3 times. So I think part of what we wanna do is elevate the improvements made
Mm,
by supportive states. I mean, that's not gonna be enough. That's not gonna be
yeah.
enough. So we have to wait and see. It looks like from the provisional data, it looks like most states are still reporting.
Yeah. Right, but someone asks, Lauren asks, what do you do if and when they manipulate the data, right? Like, so how do you, is there a way to know, like when Texas sends in their data, like, is there a way to know how accurate that is? Are there like measures for that? Or is there just no
Yeah.
possible way to,
Yeah, I think we will, because we work on a lot of issues and we don't have OBGYNs and doctors on staff. I
yeah,
think we'll probably, I anticipate that Guttmacher and
yeah,
Answer will be on top of that, and people, and I think there'll probably be whistleblowers.
mm,
So, you know, encouraging
right.
whistleblowers. Is that our
Let
strategy? I don't know.
I mean, listen, I will take every
Yeah,
whistleblower that we can. I mean, like, isn't that's somewhat what happened in Georgia, where right, like they fired the entire maternal mortality committee in Georgia because someone spoke to ProPublica,
right.
and shared the story of Amber Nicole Thurman and Candy Miller, and so instead of addressing this crisis that the abortion ban has created, they are just like, well, no, we're just going to fire everyone and start fresh, which is
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. I mean, that makes me think, Jessica. So I did think, I mean, foolish, I guess. I did think that when ProPublica and us and others started
Mhm.
publicizing the harms,
Right.
that they would at least like step back from this. And even if
Mhm.
I mean, I do, right, as much as I want abortion to be legal and affordable and accessible
Mhm.
in the whole country, it's going to be a very long time until
Mhm.
we reverse bans. And
Right.
so I do think we need, it would be good while this is happening for policies in these banned states to be
Mhm.
better so that pregnant women are not dying.
Right.
Um, so, but I think what you see, and this is where, right, kind of both of us our work on like them, they really do want to ban birth control by
Yeah.
defining it as that, like, there's a bigger picture here. Like this is tied to, and I'm sure this is you do a lot of work on this. This is not news to people here, but I think it's important to say that this anti-abortion movement came out of a broader anti-women's equality, anti-feminist, anti-LGBTQ plus counter-revolution that is mostly driven by fundamentalists. Most
Mhm.
of them Protestant, but lots of them Catholics, some of them Jews, some of them
Mhm.
Muslims, predominantly white. And we're seeing the bigger picture play out. So whereas, like, if this really was, as I say, about, right, okay, moral questions, if this really was about that, they
Yeah.
would take some steps and control their extremists to,
Sure.
allow doctors to provide life-saving care
Right.
to women miscarrying, right? But
Right.
instead, they're going the opposite direction. And the whole trad wife is part of that. The Trump administration calling the birth control, burning abortifacients. It's all part of that. And I do think that we are not going to get a handle
Mm.
on this movement or on like American
Yeah.
politics in general if we don't really understand the tenacity and the strength of this very small minority of the country,
Right.
but this very organized, very political, this,
Yeah. Well,
take no
I was
prisoners movement.
exactly. And I actually I'm glad that you brought this up because I wanted to ask you a bit about this because you wrote a terrific book, a few years ago called Delirium. What's the subhead? The Politics of Sex in America,
Absolutely.
right? And one of the things that you wrote about was the rise of those fundamentalists and this really intense conservative movement of sexual regression, right? And I am curious to hear how you think that's being translated today, because to me it is the trad wife movement. It is something like this where it's sort of been repositioned as somehow like empowering or cool or new or interesting, when really it's, to me, it's just the same old shit that you're putting like a shinier sheen on by getting young influencers and, whoever else to join. But like, it's not a coincidence that this is happening at the same time that they're rolling back reproductive rights. It's not a coincidence that they're spreading this message to young women that actually you don't want reproductive rights anyway, because being at home and pregnant constantly is fantastic, and you're going to like it much better, and you don't have to worry your head, pretty little head about politics. I mean, is this like the translation that you're seeing? Like, how else are you seeing like the stuff that you tracked in your book translate to right
Yeah.
now?
So definitely seeing that. I think that is part of how they've attracted young men,
Hmm.
right? I feel like I don't want to get too far afield that this movement, like there is definitely something going on with young men. I'm not sure it's everything that we say. Geppy
Sure.
wants to look at the data on this, but they're attracting young men with this reactionary ideology. Now, to young men, this is potentially gives them lots of benefits and
Yeah.
privileges. So I don't know that it's going to work with women
Mm.
because right, it's not giving us anything. It's
Hmm.
taking things away. And
Yeah.
so while I think they're going to try, and I think misinformation and social media might
Hmm.
change this,
Yeah.
I think it's a really hard sell. And so let me talk about another two more elements that
Mm.
I talked about in Delirium that I think is relevant here. That whenever this movement feels like they're like there's a setback, like they're too
Hmm.
much out in the open, they revert to stealth mode. And so the
Mm.
prime example of this was Trump saying, I'm not going to ban abortion. Right. And we're
Yeah.
seeing, so that's one element. And I think we're seeing a lot of this, and we will see more of this in the midterm. So I would just say,
Sure.
Jessica, like when you hear these people who voted for the national abortion ban say, oh, all right, I
Yeah.
believe in exceptions, like let's call them out.
Hmm.
And also, back to your first point, we need to hold the media accountable because
Yeah.
I would say, uh, I do numbers, this is not real numbers. 70% of the articles I read
Sure.
where, woman on the street, man on the street about
Yeah.
this stuff being attractive, there's some sign there that that person is actually connected to the
Yeah.
right wing evangelical fundamentalist movement. Like they name their, moms for
Always.
school,
Yeah.
the school group, moms for choice. And like the reporter almost never says,
They're
member
connected. Yeah.
of a a religious
Yeah.
group wanting to ban books about trans kids from school
Yeah.
says, oh, it would be nice to go back into the home.
Yeah, that's why I always Google those people whenever I see a quote
Mm,
from like the Times or Washington Post or anywhere else where it's a woman saying, "Oh, like actually, like we don't want birth control." I'm always do a little Google, and you can almost inevitably find
yeah,
some sort of connection there. Though I will say, I do worry. I'm glad to hear you say that you feel like it's a seductive sell to young men, but not necessarily to young women, because what are we getting out of it? I do worry, though, to be honest. I'm concerned because I see Democrats shifting away from focusing on young women, putting all of this attention onto young men, saying like that's where we need to, and just sort of like leaving young women, all women, but young women specifically, to this like Republican indoctrination machine
yeah,
where that's who they're hearing from, right? And if they're in schools, one of the things I've been tracking are those Baby Olivia bills that are going to be in, over a dozen, I think, schools where they're forced to teach that life begins at conception, forced to teach anti-abortion propaganda, where they're really thinking 30 years ahead. Like they are cultivating the next generation of anti-abortion voters and cultivating the next generation of anti-abortion women. And I worry that if we don't sort of like solidify and enhance like the power that this movement already has with women and young women specifically, that they're going to feel left behind and they won't even necessarily realize that they've been right. Like, look at Maha. I know lots of smart people who are like dabbling in the Maha realm. It's distressing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Democrats um, need to really do something to continue speaking to young women. So yeah, it's a real danger. We have to do something. So I don't want to let
Of
it seem like,
course.
oh, we can just let it go. But so this is what they're up against. Um, in every society where women have gained control of our bodies and
Mm,
reproduction, birth rates fall.
right.
Right? So, right, we can talk about that whole like, oh, we need to get birth rates up. That's a whole nother pile of reactionary crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I think it is, um, but I do think there's a real problem of communications. And
Yeah.
there is a real problem in democratic organizing. And, this is the other part that I talk about a lot in that book. I feel like I'm living in Groundhog Day. Like that book was published in 2012, right?
Right.
So,
No, I published The Purity Myth in
yeah.
2010,
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
like, were we back here? I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And so, um, I'm sorry, of course, I just lost my train of thought and like angry, lost my train of thought. um,
Oh God, no,
yeah.
please. That's like the story of my life.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So about the Democrats. Yes.
Yeah.
So Democrats scare too
Yeah.
easily and become like
Yeah.
despondent and right. So I think we've really overreacted to the
Mm,
2024 election.
mm,
And, but I think all the commentary about Democrats need to speak authentically. They need to
mm.
get on like new media channels, not even new, right?
Yeah.
All that does need to happen.
Sure.
And, yeah, women in their 20s are really dissatisfied, right?
Yeah.
It's
As they as
it's
they
like
should be.
exactly,
As
exactly.
they should be. I was
Yeah.
saying to someone, I think that I really do think that part of the issue with younger women is that this is the first generation that watched their mothers work outside the home and handle everything inside the home as well, right? And they're like, that looks fucking miserable. Why would I
Mm.
want to work full time and come home and work full time? And conservatives are offering them something different, at least, right? Like, what are we offering young women? And obviously, like, we could go on a whole thing about, obviously that's not really seductive and you didn't have any
Yeah.
rights back then, all of that. But if you're 17, 18 years old, if you're 20, 21 years old, and the workforce looks like it does, and capitalism is just a fucking nightmare, then there is going to be something seductive about someone saying to you, you don't have to worry about any of this, actually, and you can opt out of all of this is if we're not offering anything different, like where's our big push for mandated paid maternity leave and childcare and talking about, reproductive rights and abortion in the same breath as childcare and healthy families and gun violence, right? Like the things that honestly, like Black feminists and the reproductive justice movement have been talking about forever. But like there is no like proactive push for them in this way. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think, people tried under Biden. I think
mm,
it was kind of a good case, I think,
yeah,
where like representation matters.
sure.
That we had a bunch of men over 70 or 80 in the Democratic Party defining infrastructure as only bridges and
Yeah,
roads and things that they could
yeah,
drive their trucks on and wear their hard hats and like have photo ops. Um, I think a different, I don't think the childcare, paid leave, all of that package would have been so easily abandoned with had there been either a younger man or a
Mm,
woman there.
mm,
So I think it was more like, a lot of that's generational.
sure.
So that's a big issue. I think, we know there was, do you remember, you're old enough to remember the first opt-out revolution?
Yeah,
Right? Yeah. The data on that is like very few women opted out, and
right.
only, right,
Or could.
extremely wealthy or, professionals
Yeah.
did it, right? And then most of them regretted it. So I do think, there is an economic reality, and
Hmm.
I actually think that the choice younger women are more likely to make is to not have kids.
I think that that's
And,
absolutely right.
absolutely a choice, but it's also, right, it is sad that economic constraints would force that
Sure.
decision on you. That should be a decision that is truly a free decision.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's economic constraints, but I also think like the conversations I see happening online with younger women are very much about how they don't have trust in the fact that they'll be able to find an equal partner. They're not willing to do all of this themselves. And of course there's like the health fears and factor with all of it and reproductive rights being stripped away. But that is a conversation I see happening more
Mhm.
and more of women saying, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm gonna opt out. This is not worth it to me. There's no support for this. Why would I? Um, and it's scary because it's happening at the same time that Republicans are saying, well, tough shit, you're gonna do it anyway, right? Um, I don't know. It's really it's distressing. Someone who there was just a really great comment. I miss it, but it was about how people in their 30s, like the Democrats can't assume um, that they have these votes forever, right? That like we
Yeah.
can't take for granted that we're going to continue to have these votes. And I think that that's right.
Yeah. And they're right. Nobody should take anybody's vote for granted.
Yeah.
So,
There was something else in your book I wanted to talk about
mhm,
because I was reminded of it. Like you wrote a little bit about how issues like women's safety were once treated like a private matter, right? Like domestic violence, it was considered a private matter, and changing that for people to understand that this was a public health issue like took a lot of work, took a lot of advocacy and policy change. And I was thinking about that recently because I'm sure you saw, and I'm sure folks watching saw Donald Trump complaining that domestic violence is counted in crime statistics, and saying, oh, now like if you get into like a little fight with the wife, now it's a crime. I'm just wondering, like, you can speak to that specific
yeah.
comment if you want to, but also like, what does it look like when women's rights and violence against women? What does it look like when these issues are treated like a private matter, and why are conservatives so obsessed with making them right a private matter rather than a public issue?
Yeah. I guess I would say I don't know how widespread it is, but
Mm,
as we've seen in the 10 years of Trump being on the national stage, these ideas that seem like so crazy and outrageous,
yeah.
then become normalized. And that is how um, elite opinion does trickle down to people. And
Hmm.
he's an evil genius at the marketing and the media and making
Sure.
himself the center of attention all the time. Um, so I do kind of wrapping this up a little bit. So one,
Mm,
I think, or wrapping, like
yeah.
pulling a bunch of these ideas and not like wrapping up,
All good.
is I think we have what I was trying to do in that book and kind of what motivated me is the revolution in gender relations in the last 50 and 60 years is one of like the world historical revolutions,
Mm,
right? Like,
hmm.
I would say on par with like maybe I don't want to say this, but like on par with the invention of the printing press.
Mm,
when you think about
sure.
how deeply that went into everybody's personal life and public life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, right, reminder, back late 60s, early 70s, it was still illegal in certain states for men to rape their wives. Women were not allowed to serve on jury duty
Yeah.
in
No.
some states. The drinking age was lower for wives than it was for women
Yeah.
in general. Um, so there were, you know, thanks to our predecessors, there were a ton of legal changes accomplished in the
Mm,
60s and 70s, including Roe, including Griswold legalizing birth control. But um, there's this quote I love from the first
mm,
generation of American feminists,
mhm.
bohemian radicals in New York City. And it was feminism will set men free.
Yeah.
And so I do think that feminism has set women free.
Mm,
But um, I would like to see us work on like a program and messaging
yeah.
that makes the benefits to all men
Mm,
clearer, right? Because
right.
if they feel like they got right, they like right now, the men that are turning to Trump feel like they didn't get anything out of it except a loss of privilege. Right. So, I mean, it's complicated. I don't have any easy answer to this, but I
No, but
want to
yeah,
say, like, we want to make sure um, that men feel part of this movement
sure.
and we're listening to their real concerns and that men can start more widely getting the benefits that those of us who are feminists, who are, advocating feminists feel it's the difference
Yeah.
it's made in our lives.
Yeah. And this is something I've written about before, about the way that I think it was a few years ago, the way that like feminism offered something to women and girls and continues to who are looking for something outside of like the mainstream idea of what it means to be a woman, right? Or like these mainstream constraints. And there is no similar alternative for men, right? Like you could say feminism, but feminism does not reach them in that way. It is not like targeted towards them in the
Yeah.
way that feminism is targeted towards women. Their alternative culture is what we're seeing now, like the red pill, Reddit, online misogyny, nightmare shit. And so, yeah, I take that call seriously. I think that that's a really good, and important prompt. I want to make sure we get a chance to talk about the work that you've done in California and what's happening in California and in blue states. And while I'm doing that, if anyone in the chat wants to drop a question for after we talk for a little bit, feel free to do that. But I know that you worked for a bit in California on the Shield Law and some of the
Yeah, I'll tell you. Right.
yeah,
So,
tell me about like
yeah.
what's going on there. And I want to say California, I'm going to fix my phone for a second. Um it's been very cool to see California in general, expand the shield law. I'm sure folks who read know that like the newest expansion allows providers to and patients to keep their names off of prescription labels for abortion pills, which is an incredibly important protection in this moment when Republican AGs and prosecutors are going after providers, finding them because their names are on these prescription labels. And it's especially important that it is California because so many abortion providers in different blue states are using California pharmacies to send abortion pills to anti-abortion states. So it was especially important that this protection happened in California. But I'll let you
Yeah.
please have the
So
floor.
I think so we're based in Los Angeles and we do a lot of California work. And
Hmm.
mostly want to kind of give a shout out to the community here. So
Mm,
there are at least three statewide alliances: California Coalition for Reproductive Freedom, the California Freedom of Freedom of Abortion Council. We call it the
mm,
FAB Council. And then there's a one that's a little older and also a kind of has a private membership, California
right.
Abortion Alliance. And all of these bring together providers, researchers, advocates,
Right.
um, the practical support people, the abortion funds, the people kind of coordinating people's care. And
Mhm.
so, and we have worked with the San Francisco Department on the Status of Women, created this Bay Area abortion rights coalition
Mm.
that of 9 counties kind of coming together. And
Right.
so there's a lot of innovation happening in California, and so the laws that you see in California we have very, our elected officials are pro-reproductive freedom,
Sure.
but they wouldn't be doing all they were doing if there was not a movement
Yeah,
holding them to account. And so,
absolutely.
like, people were ready for Dobbs. And in the first year after Dobbs, California passed the constitutional amendment, and also I think it was provided $400 million
Well.
for people traveling from out of states to
Mhm.
improve access throughout the state, to kind of fund research. And
Right.
so all of that is, I think it's a good model for other states and other communities where everybody isn't maybe kind of talking together, but haven't formally kind of come together to have these conversations to talk about what policies, what health
Mhm.
practices they could do in those states. And I know some states are doing it.
Sure.
And, um, fortunately, like California had a big budget surplus when this initially happened. We're in deficit now, so it's a little
Yeah.
harder. It's going to be much harder for California to um, backfill the cuts in Medicaid and,
Yeah.
the new, right, ruling that Planned Parenthood is defunded.
Yeah.
So, um, I that like the power of the collective, but also kind of bringing people together, like across sectors and
Mhm.
across regional
Yeah,
areas.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it
So,
is. It's inspiring, and we need
yeah.
more models like that. Um, I saw a couple of questions come in.
Okay.
I don't know if you'll have the answer to this. I might have someone. PJ wants to know how they buy a stash of abortion pills to be able to hand out to people, which I think is a great idea because they keep getting told, well, it's for your personal use. I'll look into that. I know that people have done that. Like certainly people have done that, have purchased um stashes of abortion pills like in bulk to keep for other people. Something that you could do is if you're going to do advanced provision, or if you could just buy one a week later, buy another, get like a nice stockpile of 10 going on if your plan is to hand it out to people. So I love that question. I don't know if you have anything to add to that,
No,
Nancy.
I don't. I think
Um,
it's a great idea too.
yeah. And Linda wanted to know, we need a list of demand for Democrats. What would go on your list of demands?
Hmm.
Requests, demands, however we want to
Yeah, I
put it.
think it is to s- to s- s- this is very vague. It's basically to stop talking about, right? Talk about
Mm,
women again. Talk about abortion
yeah,
again, right? Just because the polling is clear, the votes
yeah,
on almost all of the abortion rights referendum is clear, right?
yeah,
Just because Trump also won at that time doesn't
yeah,
mean that this is what drove these people into
absolutely.
Trump's arms. So I think, um, I mean, honestly, the how they do that is it continuing to talk about. I think it's hard to talk about the federal legislation, given where,
Mm,
it's right. I guess one of my demands for Democrats would be figure out a different way to talk about this than
mm,
these bills that you have introduced, where even, the person who pays no attention to politics
Sure.
knows you can't get past right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I think just adding on to that, something that you said earlier, like there needs to be a lot less fear around this issue. Like, stop being so afraid. We know that it's a winning issue. We know where the polls are. We know that people care about this issue. Like, stop playing defense, go on offense. It's just necessary.
yeah.
Lauren wants to know any thoughts about the reports of censorship, which I think is a great and timely question. Um, yeah, I've been really freaked out and scared and upset, for the last week. It's been really hard to watch, person after person get fired or doxxed for, you know, quoting a person or telling the truth about who they were. It's a really distressing thing. And the fact that it's aligning at the same time with censorship of abortion rights info is not lost on me. Or I don't know if you saw this report, Nancy, but the Electronic Frontier Foundation put out a report
Yeah.
about like the increase in social media censorship of
Mhm.
abortion related info, and that one of the things that happened most often was when it was abortion pills, right? If someone talked about abortion pills, they had a video taken down or an image taken down accusing them of trying to sell um, drugs, essentially,
Yeah.
which is just it's so frightening. And I don't know what the full answer is other than to call it out, and to say, like, I'm trying to think ahead about what are different ways that we all can communicate that don't rely on these platforms, that that how can we think proactively? How can we think ahead and plan ahead, for a moment when it becomes much more dangerous or much less possible to talk about these issues? I don't know if you all have thought about that at all in terms of the research that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it. I don't have a great answer right now. I would say, on the doxing,
Mm,
I've, we and all the people who work for us, we kind of lock down our data,
yeah,
you know,
you have
password
to.
protection, delete me, things of that sort. So I would recommend people protect themselves that way.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to predict what's going to happen. I do think participating in there has to be pushback,
Hmm.
right? So I do think that where a demonstration seems to align with your values and you
Yeah.
feel safe, stand up, be brave, go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I've heard this from someone else, like time, treasure, talent. It's like,
Mm,
there's different ways to contribute to, right, keeping alive free speech, keeping
yeah.
moving forward on these policies. And do you have time to give? Do you have your
Mm,
talent to give? Or do you have your treasure to give?
I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to think of, right, day to day, what we can do.
That's a
Um,
good one. Yeah. I like that. One last question before we let you go. You've been thinking about these issues for a long time. You're working on the data now. For folks who may have like fought for some of these rights before, like you said, we're sort of like watching this Groundhog Day happen, so for folks who fought for this before and are feeling really disheartened to see the same fights come up again and again, how do you keep yourself going, keep yourself from feeling too hopeless? How do you recommend that others do the same? Like, what is motivating you?
yeah, I think kind of mm, North Star is values I've always held.
Mm,
And I was talking to someone about this the other night. It does feel like when you're doing something every day,
mm,
like Jessica, you do writing, like I
sure.
do, and our staff does, kind of keeping Geppy running, putting out our
Yeah.
research. It does, like, action lessens the despair a little
Yeah.
bit. And you don't have to, and also not to get over, like, you don't have to do everything.
Hmm.
Just do something.
Yeah.
And I will say, so, two kind of plugs at the end. One, I'm seeing the comments roll by. It's rolling by fast. Lots of great comments. Thank you all. Thank you, Jessica. I would say take a look at the polling on abortion. And the group that I like best, doing the best polling, the smartest
Mhm,
polling that doesn't fall for all these false frames,
mhm,
is their acronym is PRRI. It's Public
mhm,
Religion
mhm.
Research Institute. And so the pro freedom, pro choice opinion kind of rose about 20 points after Dobbs. So
Yeah.
it's clearly when this issue is salient, public
Mhm.
opinion is in the right place. We just have to keep the issue
Yeah.
salient.
Yeah. That's 100%, 100% right. Thank you for coming on and sharing all of your wisdom with us. I'm gonna make sure, when this goes out to the whole list, folks who are interested, I'm going to link to Nancy's organization. I'm going to link to her book. And so anyone who wants to check it out definitely should. And if you have any Instagram or website other
Yeah,
than the ones that that
yeah.
we already have, you can let me know. But thanks everyone for coming and joining. I hope folks have a good night, that you're keeping yourself safe and relatively hopeful in these difficult times. We just had a great article go out that should have gone out by now from Kylie that I think you all will be interested to see. And the Daily Report will come back tomorrow. So thank you, everyone. Nancy, good night. Have
Good
a
night,
really
Jessica. Thank you
great
so
one.
much. Thank you for all you do. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Okay, good night.
Good night.